drifting is, like a nautical term there, and that's exactly it. We want to help people, and kind of, you could carry that analogy, like we're trying to help people become their lighthouse keepers. It's also like, as we're lighthouse keepers, we're helping those ships. They set out from one port to go to another port for a reason. It's expensive,
Yeah.
and but they had a mission, and we're trying to help them and guide them through that. So absolutely, yeah. And what's really cool is, like, you picked up on this, that the model can be applied to anything. Like, you could be applied to being a hairdresser. It could be applied to shearing sheep. It can be applied to anything, and it really helps to think through the model and kind of almost like overlay the model on whatever situation you're facing, to say, what is it that I need right now? Where am I struggling? Is it, because sometimes I've found that I've actually done the discovery work, and sometimes work is hard, and I just need to buy into the plan. Like, dude, you have a plan. You just now need to take massive amounts of action. Like, you don't need to rework your script. You don't need to, like, re-engineer your reach, or try this new marketing. You just need to do the work.
You got to
And other
show up and do
times
it.
it's like, okay, now I need to maybe take a step back and get a little more perspective before planning. So yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. You can just kind of put that over and say, where am I? And then yeah, so that kind of goes into the next step. If you want, I can share the owning the mess.
Sure.
And that's where, it's like, you accomplished what you wanted to. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this, that there's there's a suck with success. Like, you
we don't want to admit that one.
right.
But
Or just even,
it's
like,
true.
I don't know what that, like, there's that emotional kind of drop off, like, after you've really, like, accomplished something. So in the example, let's say, in real estate, you've been working with your agent to finally buy a multi-unit property. You ran the numbers, you put in tons of offers, and now you, like, actually closed on one. And it's like, congratulations, like, pop the champagne. That's awesome. It's like, well, now you get to work. Now you get to figure out how to, vet tenants, rehab a property. And yeah, so it comes down to just like acknowledging that that's going to be a phase. And that
Yeah.
phase is marked by mastery. And if that phase continues to just suck, if you don't keep in mind that you're almost there, like you set out to accomplish this goal, and if your goal is just to do it without anything past that, it really it makes you not motivated to go anywhere. You're
It's
not.
empty.
It's empty. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why there's that fourth step of, like, keeping your eyes forward to, how can I learn what I'm learning now, own the mess, where I can help somebody else when they get to this stage. And that's the keeping the light burning. It's like, when do you need to turn around and share this with the next person?
I think it's good where you guys start too, because you've probably read Start with Why or have heard
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely.
But when you guys do that, when you determine that in advance, this is why we're doing this. It's not just for the goal, whatever it is. It's for a bigger cause, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just I want to own an investment house, or I want to own a house someday, or whatever.
Right.
It's bigger than that. It's I want to give my kids financial freedom, or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah, and it might look the same on the outside, but we
Mm-hmm.
together have done that discovery work to say, like, our family's growing, we need a space for our kids, or it might end up being that we're still looking for 3-bed, 2.5, bath houses in this community, but we now know that it's so much more richer how we came to that conclusion, to the point where then you're so much more grateful for it when you have it. You can really, get into that mastery phase of owning the home and loving your kids, or whatever it might be, and then turn around and share it with the next person, which is really, really key. And that's, like, that last step of the keeper is really cool, because how much more do we then own and are grateful for things when we're then teaching them to somebody else?
Yeah. So that's the last step, is to
keeping the light burning. Yeah. So from seeker to keeper. Yep. And so and there's just that kind of idea of, like, always keeping the light burning, and in that there's some suffering and kind of some long suffering there of just, can, like, those lighthouse keepers, they man their stations for 40, 50 years of every night, no vacation, keeping that light burning. So yeah, what does it look like for us? How do we keep our eyes open to lend a hand to the next person? Or even just remembering what it was that we wanted to set out to do. And, it's very personal, in
Yeah.
whatever way that you feel called. But when you keep that in mind, it's so much more rich where you're at.
Justin, as far as your employees, have you had them make that full circle? Have you had them, how many years have you had employees doing property management?
So I've been doing, we kind of are, this year was, well, I say this year. Last year was when we really organized the property management as a service.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that in-house. Our agents, we have like a couple people that help, but mostly like we have staff that do the property management, and then our agents are working with the clients in terms of
Okay.
selling. Yeah. They
Okay.
sell property management, so but then they pass it off to the operations side of the house.
I gotcha.
Yeah. But no, yeah, we've been, like I said, business about 3 years. And we're still kind of figuring out how does this concept that is fun to talk about on a podcast, like
Sure.
how does this like really meet the rubber meet the road? And a lot of it is our meetup. I've like a lot of folks that we were helping as clients are coming back now as guests.
Mm,
And it's kind of, I think meetups have like a seasons to them where people come for like 4 or 5 weeks. They get that one nugget they needed, and then they're off to the races. You won't see them for a year, and then they're like, oh, now I have 5 units or whatever it might
now
be.
I
Yeah,
now I have another problem.
right,
I need some
exactly.
more information.
Yeah, exactly.
How
Yep.
many years have you done your meetup?
So the meetup is actually probably at least 7 years.
Okay.
Every month for 7 years. It was on the third Thursday of the month for probably 6 years, and then Thursdays just seemed to be butting into some things, so we moved it to Mondays. And yeah, so probably, but yeah, 7 years. I think I've missed like four. But
Wow.
yeah, there's sometimes like we vacation and whatnot. I'm like, oh shoot, is that gonna fall in the meetup? And like for some reason, I've like unintentionally. I know this is about intentionality, but like I've always threaded the needle where I haven't had to miss the actual meetup for a while. But yeah, I mean, one thing that's been cool that we survived through COVID with doing a little bit of Zoom and a little bit of the park. We did like bring a lawn chair. We're gonna meet at this park, and we just kind of spread out and chatted. And those were kind of like the fun days, like. Um, and then we would do like different guests that would it'd be like, hey, share whatever you want to share, like you have as much time as you need. And so we'd have like a lender would do like a slide deck or whatnot. We found what was really rich was just like hearing people's stories. Because I'm like, if you need help finding a lender, we can find you a lender. I
Yeah.
actually did. I did have my lender. I've had him probably 3 times. My mortgage broker. The last time that I think was most successful was when I actually asked him his story. I didn't just say the floor is
Hmm.
yours. Share some cool deals that you've been able to fund. And he's done some really cool deals. But like I was like, tell me about Gary. Like tell me about your story. And he had an incredible story. And I talked to him for hours and hours and hours from him doing my various refinances and purchases, and there was some stuff I'd never even heard, and it was incredible. So that's where I found that the meetup really kind of kicked it up a notch, was just that richness of hearing people's story, and then from there, one on one with your agent or whatever, you can
Sure.
get those like more details, like a good title agent or a good lender or whatever. So
I think the story is so key because there's so many more emotions involved in it, and it's so much more real, and you get to hear, you know, about how Justin Brown killed complacency and went out and got his broker's license because he saw a need for property management.
yeah,
There's there's so much more value in that than, hey, this is how we at White Lighthouse property manage, and these are our pillars.
right, yeah,
Like that's fine, but hearing your story and your reason behind it is so much more powerful than you know the pillars of Lighthouse
yeah,
property management.
yeah, absolutely, no, for sure. Um, yeah, it's been really cool.
That was a key thing you told me when we first talked, because I asked you about meetups.
Yeah.
And since then, the way we do our meetups is I actually usually will have a panel, a couple guys, and then we'll talk about burr or wholesaling or whatever. But I've changed my questions to tell me the story of your first or your best, whatever.
Yeah.
Because then you get these guys or gals that do dialogue and they do go deeper and they do um, share their emotions and what they were feeling and how scared they were. And
Yeah.
so that was a really helpful thing you told me.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. And we forget when we look at people that are more successful, we think like, oh, they got this so dialed in, it's like not emotional. And then we forget that, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they, if you go back to the lighthouse model, like maybe their mastery at small multifamily, but maybe they're quaking in their boots on their first like large multifamily. Which I was like, isn't multifamily like multifamily? It's like, no, it's not. Like a 12 unit is much different than a 4 unit.
Yeah.
Vacancy is different, capex is different, and funding's way different. So like we can look at someone who's arrived or made it and forget that like maybe they can relate to me, and or maybe I can relate to them and learn something from how maybe maybe they were scared but they still took action, and
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like. And that's actually one of my favorite quotes is um, there's a scene in Band of Brothers where the one I think he's a lieutenant is talking to the private, and the private confessed that he like had just kind of stayed put on after he parachuted into Normandy, um, and the lieutenant said, "Do you why did you just stay in that foxhole?" And he's like, "Because I was scared." He's like, "No, we're all scared." He's like, "You hid in that foxhole because you thought there was still hope." And if you're the way to live as a soldier, I'm butchering it, but he's like, is to realize that you're already dead. He's like, that's when
Mm.
you can operate as a soldier is supposed to. And he says, without remorse, without mercy, without compassion. Um, and I love that idea of like, what does it look like for us to operate as a soldier on what we need to do? It's like, not like no mercy to our complacency, no compassion, no remorse. Like, I'm just, and the only way we can do that is if we already kind of have our lives forfeit to
Sure.
whatever the greater calling might be that we feel convicted about. Um, and so I don't know where I was going with that, but just that idea of um, like we're all scared, yeah, in some way, and we learn that when we talk to people at all levels. I have friends that are
Mm-hmm.
500 units. I have friends that have five, and so what does it look like to still take action? And that's to realize, like, let me stop thinking about myself and just
Yeah.
remind myself about where we're trying to go and who I'm trying to serve, and then I can operate as I'm supposed to operate, and that's with no mercy to my wanting to be lazy, no mercy or compassion to wanting to be comfortable, and no remorse to wanting to just think about myself, but how can I think about others?
Sure. It's interesting you bring that up. My son right now is doing his first burr. He's actually going to rent it out to his buddies, rent it by the room.
Nice.
But I have forgotten some of those early emotions, that you have, that as we've progressed, you've probably heard the quote, how to handle hard better.
Mm,
That basketball coach says that.
yeah.
But for me, things have gotten easier. That some of Ezekiel's struggles are pretty elementary to me. But when I take myself back to that first deal, yeah, it was so hard. It was so scary. And dealing with contractors who don't want to show up or whatever.
Yeah.
All that stuff is hard, but you learn by doing it to get easier and easier, just like the soldier, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, it gets easier and easier.
I love it. That's very cool.
Justin, tell us what your latest adventures are up to. So
Yeah.
you've got the brokerage. You guys are moving right along. Hey, I want to hear one more thing quick.
Oh yeah.
You've been an agent for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
How much have you seen prices change in 10 years in your
Oh man.
area? Are they
um
doubled?
uh Probably. I mean, on some multifamily, like I know this one listing I had that I was like struggling to get 80, 85 for. It was a 2 unit, and now it would have easily gone for 160. Yeah, no problem. And yeah, so like on some things, this
Have you
home we bought for 175, and it's probably worth 275 now, and that was like 5 years ago. No, 6 years ago. So it's weird. It's really weird.
it's crazy, huh?
It's nuts. Yeah.
So what are your guys' future plans,
Yeah.
um,
So
goals?
we want to grow, kind of keep true to who we are. We're a sales company that does property management. And that's, I'm not sure everywhere, but at least in Allentown, if you're just called XYZ Property Management, like you have to
Yeah,
be licensed and you have agents working for you, but you wouldn't like to see that sign in your nice single family home as a listing. You'd be like, oh, that's
sure.
weird. But yeah, just also keeping that core in terms of the goal is to really help our clients in their journey with growing their portfolio. So yeah, building our sales team, continuing to dial in the property management. We'd like to be. We're hoping to get to 200 units this year,
Okay.
and yeah, and then we're also looking at opening an office in Reading. So that's something that
Okay.
we're working on right now. We have a couple people there that are a little kind of um, offshoots that they kind of report into our Allentown office, but they're out there in Reading.
Boots on the ground.
Yep, yeah. So we're working on just kind of building up a team out there. And yeah, I'd like to do some of my own stuff this year. Looking for another large multifamily deal, like something 12 unit plus, and also doing some flips, and that's been pretty
Okay.
fun. So yeah, those are kind of the
Is your
things.
is your flip market pretty strong there?
Um, the prices are good and so forth. If you can find the deal, like I'm sure anywhere, if you can find the
Hmm.
purchase it cheap enough, it's great. Yeah. But
It's
I mean,
always money.
I got my last one on market. It was I got it for 113 and put about 67 into it and sold it for 237. So
Wow, that's good.
yeah, yeah. So they're out there, absolutely. I don't know if I'd be able to do 100 in Allentown, but hoping to do maybe 5 or 6.
How big is Allentown?
The population, if I remember correctly, is 115,000. It's technically the
Okay.
third largest city in Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh. It's the third
Okay.
behind Pittsburgh and Philly. So yeah,
Yeah, I would think there would be a lot of deals there. You could find them.
yeah, yeah. No, it's enough to stay busy for sure.
Um, what do you think, Justin, gives you an unfair advantage over other people that are real estate brokers?
Probably just my
What?
investment in people first,
Hmm.
and then properties. I know a lot of people that have the systems dialed in, but like they're not interested in investing in their team, and I think
Okay.
that I just see people first and then projects. And yeah, so I remember the other night I was just thinking like, oh, like I wish I had more units or this or that or whatever. But then I was thinking, I was like, well, like I've really grown with investing in our office manager and our leasing agent
Hmm.
and a few of our sales leaders, and I'm like super proud of that. So I'd say that.
Have you read the book Go Giver?
No, but I've had a bunch of people recommend it to me.
That premise that you talked about is really in that book to get away from transactions and get more involved in relationships with people.
Yes, yeah, absolutely,
It's just a short little book, but
yeah.
it's a good one.
Well, that's the cool thing about being an agent to investors is that you actually like it's worth it to invest in the relationship because
Hmm.
it's not just one transact. Like it's exhausting to do that over and over and over again. Versus could you like pour into a few relationships? And that was also part of why I wanted to be a broker was like I wanted to move from not just helping my clients, but how could I help more team members help even more
Hmm.
clients? So yeah, no, that's really cool.
The we always kind of try to wrap up our podcast, Justin, with 2 questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready?
Let's go.
The first question, and this is a bigger pocket thing. What is your favorite book? If you're
Ooh.
stuck on a desert island and you got one book with you, and if you say the Bible, that's fine, but maybe add another.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, it's funny when you say favorite book versus stuck on a desert, like something I could read over and over again. It actually might be um Bonhoeffer. It'd probably be
Oh,
if I'm like pages per um
that's deep.
yeah. Um really great. It's like a history book. It's got letters in it. It's got many kind of like theses on living together and people and but yeah, it's just
Which Bonhoeffer book? Because
it's
he's
just
got a
called
couple, doesn't he?
Bonhoeffer and it's by Eric
Okay.
Metaxas. I actually have a
Okay.
signed copy. It's somewhere around here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cut you off. Bonhoeffer or
Well, then I guess just maybe there's they say like what's your most given book like that I would give out? Probably The Richest Man in Babylon. That
mm,
one's really rich, and I could read that over and over and over again. Uh, but yeah, we'll stick with if I'm on this desert island, favorite book that I could read and read and
gonna
read.
be Bonhoeffer.
Bonhoeffer. Yeah, yeah, really crazy cool guy. Can't wait to meet him one day in heaven.
Yeah, that's cool. Final question. You got one message to share with the world. What's your message? What is one thing that Justin Brown wants the world to hear that he feels like God has burdened you to share this message? What is
Yeah.
it?
I'll just kind of look at my wristband here. You are worthy. And yeah, just the concept there of whatever it is that you are excited about or want to tackle, or even just that you are worthy to have something that is worth going after and tackling and making happen. But yeah, you're worthy, and I hope that that phrase I made it into wristbands and I gave it to all my team members that they would it would just give them courage to um, that they are allowed to dream big and they're allowed to go after it. They don't have to ask permission. They don't have to feel imposter syndrome. And I think the deeper meaning there is too, like we have value because God's given us value. And
Yeah,
so yeah, you're worthy. Go out and do it.
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I sure appreciate you doing this with us, Justin, and
Awesome,
I
man.
look forward to getting to know you better. And
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much for having me on here. And I hope your listeners get something out of our conversation today.
yeah, they will.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You got it. I'll catch you later.